So is your relationship with God based on fear, or is it based in love? You might ask the question, is your relationship with yourself based in fear or love? Is your relationship with money based in fear or love? Is your relationship with your body, with your health, with every aspect of your life based in fear or based in love? And so the question is, where are you going to put your energy? You want to have an experience of God that's an epiphany, which is a standing forth from the ordinary. And James Dillard Freeman, in his poem that we based our meditation on, I Am There, had an epiphany. He actually heard an audible voice. You know, sometimes an epiphany, which is a standing forth from ordinary reality, a bursting forth into visibility of something that's invisible and higher, an aha, a grasping of reality. Often an epiphany comes as a result of something wonderful, like the birth of a baby or the beauty of a sunset, seeing the Grand Canyon. Have you ever had something like that where you, oh, I get it, it's so wonderful. You come to a church service in the middle of a meditation, you understand something, you get some kind of guidance. But an epiphany can also happen in answer to a very troubling and real need. And that's what happened with James Dillard Freeman. When he received the words to I Am There, when he actually heard, he shared with me, it was the only time in his life that he actually heard an audible voice. And he whipped out his pen and he wrote down those words. It was because he was in his most desperate time in his entire life. His first wife, Catherine, was the reason why he was in unity all of his life. You see, a little side story here. Catherine's father was the second in command in the Pendergast machine, the most corrupt machine in American political history. And he was the conciliary. He was the attorney for the Pendergasts. And he was also a devout Irish Catholic. And he had a favorite childhood priest who had retired to a priest's retirement home in southern Kansas City. And he went to visit him, and he found him living in such squalid conditions that he, with all of his power, went to the diocese and said, you need to change this, and they didn't do anything about it. And he got so mad that he jumped ship and started going to unity. Now, in the Catholic Church, in his culture, which is very much an old European culture, you gave your oldest daughter to the church to become a nun. But now he was in unity, so he gave his daughter to work in silent unity. And James Dillard Freeman met her there. And he said, I never would have stuck in unity if I hadn't met her. She was the love of my life. He said, I tried to get away any number of times, but she would always pull me back. And they married, and it was the love of his life. But when he found out that the love of his life, Catherine, was dying, he was in great need. Where is God? Where is God when God doesn't seem to be present? When we have an experience in life that just seems to be so troubling and so difficult that it looks like God has disappeared. You know, the minister once said, there is no spot where God is not. Together, there is no spot where God is not. Sometimes it looks like God's not present. You know, is God as present in a pill as in a prayer? Is God as present in a cathedral as in a crack house? Does God love you as much as you love God? Is there some place in your life? Or is God everywhere equally present? And sometimes it's in the midst of the most difficult and lack-filled experiences that God comes forth the greatest. The Fillmores, Charles and Myrtle, did not attribute the longevity of unity to her two great overcomings, which were two terminal illnesses through prayer and affirmative statements, nor his overcoming of a terminal illness, nor any of the outer things that they dealt with in that way. It was actually the depression of 1890 when these multimillionaires lost everything they had after they'd started unity. And in response to the need, they had to reach deep down and pull up divine resources, which led them intuitively to form Silent Unity, to form the publications, to form their Sunday service ministry, and to meet the needs of the people around them, but also in such a creative way that unity found its longevity. And They wrote all about it in the years 1929 and 1930. And I've shared before, James Dillard Freeman wrote the story of this in his book, The Story of Unity, which was, he said, 3 times longer in his original form, but 2/3 of it was cut out of it because of stories like that. And that was actually cut out of it after Fillmore's death because they thought it was just too negative. It wasn't too negative. He said it was a much better book. I wish people could have read it because it talked about the great overcoming. Do you want an epiphany in life? I want an epiphany in life. Together? I want an epiphany in life. I want God to stand forth in splendor. Together? I want God to stand forth in splendor. But if you want that, where's the need? Where's your greatest need? You know, we think about Jesus' great miracles. We say, oh, isn't it wonderful that Jesus had this miracle? But they all came in response to a real need. It wasn't just to show off. We're in your life. Sometimes it's in response to something that is wonderful. Lynn has only heard an audible voice, and by the way, epiphanies aren't audible voices. I've never heard an audible voice. But she's only heard him twice. Once when I asked her to marry me, and she heard, say yes now, and then think about it later. And when we were shopping for her engagement ring, and she heard, you'll have 2 children. The first will be a girl, and the second will be a boy. I don't know. But sometimes that epiphany, that need, comes forth in response to something difficult. Buckminster Fuller once said, if God's answers are not forthcoming, it may be that you're on the wrong track and God is trying to move you to a better one. If your answer is not forthcoming, it may be that you're on the wrong track and God's trying to move you to a better one. And where in your life has that been the case? I remember in 1980, I graduated from ministerial school. I moved to Huntington Beach, California, and I was going to pioneer a ministry. It was going to be a wonderful ministry. There was no real unity work in that area. There had been one once upon a time, but it had died out. What a great place to do it. And every time I tried, I got the door slammed in my face. There was no way I could do it. And I finally asked in meditation, deep meditation, why? What's going on here? And I got, you are not needed here. Not needed here. It's not necessary is the word. It is not necessary. What I didn't know is that across town, there's a woman named Peggy Bassett who had a small religious science church, 40 people. She was there for 7 years. It grew to 80 people. They had outgrown their facility and they were going to build a building. They actually bought the land for the building. They got all the permits. They got the loan. They were all ready. They broke ground and they went into the bank to get the money to do the construction, and the guy who gave them the loan was gone, and they said, I'm sorry, you can't have the money. Their world came crashing down around their feet. I mean, here they were going to build a sanctuary of 300 people, which was a big step in faith for a congregation of 80 people, but they believed if you build it, they will come. And then something strange happened. They started having meetings. They what are we going to do? It was a crisis because they moved temporarily into a mall that was failing. It had 2/3 of the mall was vacant. You ever been in kind of a vacant mall? And so there they were in a small section of it. But people who wouldn't come into a church started coming in for their services in the mall. They would see it when they were doing their shopping, and they would drop by in services. And within 3 months, they were up to 250 people. And within a few years, they were up to 2,500 people. And they never, if they built their building, you see they were on the wrong track. They had to move to another track. Now you say, well, what's the relationship between what I desire, what I pray for, and what it is that I'm supposed to receive? How do I surrender? What do I do here? You have to be fully engaged but fully surrendered. You have to be willing, as Jesus said, this is what I want. Take this cup from me, but nevertheless, let your will be done, not mine. Have that attitude. It's paradoxical. It's kind of tricky. How do you do that? This is tricky. To say, I'm willing to have things turn out differently than I have in mind. You share your best understanding of things, but then you've got to let it go. And they found, interestingly enough, that the great healings that have happened that Harvard studied, there was always a point at which they had to let go of the outcome. To the extent that people let go of the outcome, but were very intentional about the healing, things worked out better, and they were able to measure that in a positive way. So how can you be intentional and yet let go of the outcome? Mike McCord, I shared his story a couple weeks ago, and just a couple of days ago, he sent me the draft of his completed autobiography, his book, telling all of his story, and I want to share a little of it with you. But one thing he did was he wrote down a couple of things in his God box, but he also let go of the outcome. And he was taking Jane Hart's classes in that church. He was learning this dance. Here he was quadriplegic. Here he was in a dire circumstance. He'd lost his job. He'd lost his marriage. Many other crises in his life. All of his world had come crashing down. But it was, things have to go into divine disorder in order to be divinely ordered sometimes. Sometimes things have to break down in order to come back again in a new form. And so he heard about this idea of a God box. You've heard of that God box idea, haven't you? Where you write down your best understanding of the desired solution in your God box, and then you let it go. You let go of the outcome, and you don't think on it, you don't work on it, you just let it go, and you put your energy back on God. Emmett Fox calls that the golden key. You put your energy on God. And so he wrote 2 slips of paper and put them in the God box. First, obtain a good job with a good salary, and second, run a mile. Obtain a good job with a good salary. He was blocked every step of the way, and he finally found his dream job, and he knew he was the man for it. He knew he qualified. It was working for the housing department of the federal government, helping poor people, and he had so much experience in the banking world. And he'd been fired from his job while he was a quadriplegic. Wasn't fair. All these things had happened, but he'd done his forgiveness work. He'd done the 7-step work over and over and over again. And so here he was, and he knew it was the right thing. So he called him up because he hadn't heard from him, asked him about the job, and they said, well, we're sorry, but we've already made a decision. Well, he was devastated because he knew it was the right job. But then he surrendered. He took the job up the 7 steps, and he got a letter from him. The decision had been made. It had been him. He was the right person. And then the running a mile. When he was working with his physical therapist, who was a wonderful man, but really wasn't real encouraging, he said, I want to stand up. And the guy said, well, she said, I want to walk. He said, well, let's talk about walking once you can stand up. Well, once he stood up, he says, okay, let's walk. Well, yeah, he said, my next goal is I want to run. He said, well, let's talk about running when you walk. Well, then he said, I'm going to climb Mount Elbert in Colorado. Let's talk about that when you can run. And he was able, that first day when he was able to run that mile, and I remember that week when he came into the class, Jane Hart was teaching, and the Tuesday night meditation like we do here, and he worked on these things, and he worked on these things. You come to church, you want to be comforted, don't you? Don't you want to come and feel better about yourself and then just go home and have everything just be the same and coast along? But you know what? It's not about that. It's about engaging with the process and doing the work on a day-to-day basis and actually moving the mountain, making the miracle happen. And he said, and he told it, when the guy said to him, let's talk about climbing Mount Elbert when you can run. And he said, well, I'm going to send you a picture. I'm going to give you the picture when I get to the... And he did. And the picture's in his book. And he's standing there and I have a copy of the picture. Wow. So where in your life do you need to engage yourself? But you say, I have this limitation, I have this fear. Your fear. Face the fear and do it anyway. I face the fear and I do it anyway. Together. I face the fear and I do it anyway. We have a process, we have a written process called the Agitated Energy process. It is outside of the fellowship hall. And just pick up a copy of this. It's by Dr. Mary Allen, who was my mentor 20 years ago. And just write out the agitation that you're feeling. Write out the false belief that you're holding. And write out a true belief. Because in every case, the negative emotion you're holding is attached to a false belief. People say to me, well, I don't want to feel this anger. I don't want to feel this sadness. I don't want to feel this fear. The way to clear it is to move through it. And the way you move through it is to ask, what am I feeling? Get in touch with it. Be aware of it. Then ask, what is the false belief that I'm holding that's causing it? And get in touch with the false belief that you're holding. And then ask, what is a new and true belief that I can make that will calm me? So get a sheet of this and do that for these feelings and clear. And then take the true belief, and that's your affirmation. That's what you can work with. That's what will move you forward. Face your fear. Do it anyway. I love this quote from the book Dune. Anybody see or read the book Dune or the movie Dune by Frank Herbert? It's called the Bene Gesserit Litany, and I love this. It says, it's part of their made-up religion in the book, but it's great. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it has gone past me, I will turn to see fear's path. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Only I will remain. So what are you most afraid of? Face it. I've shared many times about facing my fear of heights. I almost died when I was 2. I fell off of a second floor balcony, and I had to, cuss up a 4-letter blue streak every time I would make myself do the thing that was, at the heights and the fear and everything else. I passed out when I jumped out of the airplane with a parachute. Thank goodness I was hooked up with a guy wire, or I would have jumped to a conclusion. They laughed more at 9. I'm sorry. But I worked through it. So where is your fear? Einstein said about Mahatma Gandhi, he said, in future generations, people will scarce believe that such a one as this walked the earth in flesh and blood. What a great being he was. He brought the greatest empire in the world history, the British Empire, to its knees. He was such a courageous man, but are you aware that he was one of the most frightened people in history? When he was a child, he was so afraid of the dark that he couldn't sleep at night. He'd cry himself to sleep every night. He was so afraid of the dark. When he was in school, he would never talk to anyone because he was terrified of people. When he was finally an attorney in South Africa, the first time that they had to get up to cross-examine somebody, he couldn't get a word out of his mouth and they lost the case. Oh, gosh. He was so terrified, and he said the thing that got him past it was the injustice towards his people in South Africa because of apartheid. And the final straw, the time when the epiphany happened, the breakthrough was not hearing an audible voice or some glorious sky-opening experience, but it was when the train was full and he was told he had to get off and give his seat to a white passenger. And he was so angry and he was so incensed at the injustice of it that he realized that he had to face his fear and do it anyway. I face my fear and I do it anyway. Together, I face my fear and I do it anyway. So where in your life do you need to face your fear? Where in your life do you need to accept the fact that perhaps there's something that's trying to move you onto a new track? Maybe there's something that's trying to move you in a new direction. I've shared many times here, not the reason why we're here, but the reason why I was so ready for this is that the very week that I called Unity Village and then called Be Salas was a week that I call them body blows. I had 3 situations that were very unjust that entirely closed the door to what I thought I was going to do. And I was like, okay, I'm open. And how glorious and wonderful this has been. Because it was something that I needed to get off of one track and onto another. So where in your life do you need to have an epiphany? Where in your life do you need to move past fear into love? And ask yourself, why do you think God is capricious? Where did that come from? Why do you think God withholds sometimes and gives other times? Why do you believe that God is a conditional God? Where Jesus said, love one another as I've loved you. Well, if that's true, what would make you think that God would not love unconditionally? If we're supposed to love unconditionally, is God a parent that says, do what I say, not what I do? Or is there something that you need to clear in your belief system? Be willing to take God up the 7 steps. Not the absolute God, but the God that's in your subconscious mind. You were trained, you were told things about God perhaps. Not all of us. I was born and raised in unity, but even I have things that I have to let go of, certain false beliefs that, I'm always going to get what I want. Well, it isn't about that. It's about spiritual growth, and often it is being willing to move off of the track that's familiar, the track that we like, the track that's comfortable, and move on to one that's greater, more expansive, and perhaps more uncomfortable, more challenging, but more fruitful and fulfilling. So, I'm going to invite you to join with me now, and I'm going to suggest that you get the 7 steps method also. When you go get this agitated energy, get the sheet with the 7 steps and take God up the 7 steps. I know it's challenging, but you know what? There's nothing more liberating than letting yourself be as mad as you could possibly be at the God of your subconscious, the God of your childhood. What does it say? The very first of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt have no other gods before me. You got a false god in your subconscious mind that somebody put there, that you got taught about or that you believed, and you need to clear that out. And when you clear that out, you start to open up to the flow, and you can receive more openly, less attached, letting go of outcomes, being willing to see things from a new place. So just take a deep breath and let it out and just say, I know I've got a false belief about God in my subconscious mind. That I have perhaps been trained something that's unconsciously not true about God. But I also know that there's a deeper meaning to that first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. That any false beliefs I hold about the infinite, the omnipresent goodness of God, the unconditional loving God, anything I'm holding that is unlike that, I need to let go of. What is the false belief that has generated this fearful God thought? Who taught it to me, and where did I learn it? What disappointment in my life, or what teacher, authority figure told it to me? And now, what is a true belief? What is a true belief that will calm me? And let there be silence. And now just hold on to that true belief and know that it is moving you into an awareness, a deepening, an understanding, an intuitive experience of God that can never be taken away from you. Where is God? Everywhere, equally present. Where is God? Right here, right now. Where is God even in the midst of the most difficult experiences of life? Where is God? Now here, I am there. And so it is. Amen. And I want to share one thing with you. It's my favorite quote from the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, I am the all. I am the light that's above everything. From me, everything came forth. To me, everything returns. Split wood, and I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there. What's in the middle of the split wood? Space. Openness. A questioning attitude. I don't know. A vacuum. What is underneath the stone? Space. Openness. James Freeman once said to me, I question everything. I question things so much that people say to me, Jim, you never give any answers. You just ask questions. But in the space of the question is the space of all creative possibility. So take a deep breath as always and let it out. We're going to do something different today. We're going to hear the inner voice as that voice spoke audibly to James Freeman. He told me it was the only time in his life that he actually heard an audible voice, and it was in a time of his greatest need. He had just found out in the hospital that his first wife was going to make her transition. He went into the chapel of that hospital and just surrendered and offered himself and prayed for help. And he heard a voice, the only time in his life, and he wrote down the words. Take these I am statements as your inner statements of truth. Do you need me? I am there. You cannot see me, yet I am the light you see by. You cannot hear me, yet I speak through your voice. You cannot feel me, yet I am the power at work in your hands. I am at work, though you do not understand my ways. I am at work, though you do not recognize my works. I am not strange visions. I am not mysteries. Only in absolute stillness, beyond self, can you know me as I am, and then but as a feeling and a faith. Yet I am there. Yet I hear. Yet I answer. When you need me, I am there. Even if you deny me, I am there. Even when you feel most alone, I am there. Even in your fears, I am there. Even in your pain, I am there. I am there when you pray and when you do not pray. I am in you, and you are in me. Only in your mind can you feel separate from me, for only in your mind are the mists of yours and mine. Yet only with your mind can you know me and experience me. Empty your heart of empty fears. When you get yourself out of the way, I am there. You can of yourself do nothing, but I can do all. And I am in all. Though you may not see the good, good is there, for I am there. I am there because I have to be, because I am. Only in me does the world have meaning. Only out of me does the world take form. Only because of me does the world go forward. I am the law on which the movement of the stars and the growth of living cells are founded. I am the love that is the law's fulfilling. I am assurance. I am peace. I am oneness. I am the law that you can live by. I am the love that you can cling to. I am your assurance. I am your peace. I am one with you. I am. Though you fail to find me, I do not fail you. Though your faith in me is unsure, my faith in you never wavers. Because I know you. Because I love you. Beloved, I am there. And now come back to the presence of this room and allow your tingling and feelings in your arms and legs and hands and feet, and become aware of this room. And join together, and so it is.